Hi, I'm Sashwati Sarkar, and you're watching The Times of India. Student visa crackdowns, service terminations, AI monitoring online behavior. The road to the American dream is getting bumpier for international students each day, especially from India. But amidst this uncertainty, what should students really be watching out for? And how can institutions step up? Joining us today for this conversation is someone who has been on both sides of the journey, first as an international student and now as Dean of the University of California, Santa Cruz, Silicon Valley Extension, PK Agarwal. PK, welcome to the show. Let's dive into the questions right away. With the PK, with the recent visa revocations and deportations, many students in the US are feeling very uncertain about their future. How is UCSC Silicon Valley Extension addressing these concerns to create a supportive environment for its international community?
You know, this is a very interesting question. The Obviously, we understand that visa issues can be very daunting at times. I mean, I was an international student myself once upon a time, and you want to be comfortable in the studying and your life plans and everything else. So, what we have done in light of all of the stuff that's taking place, uh, we are just making sure that our students have up-to-date information. They understand the rules and regulations. If they have any unique situation, we provide one-on-one counseling. Our international advisors are available, our international student office, our legal office. So we are just really making sure that they get a sense that if they do their part right, it's okay. And so by and large, it's working. Uh, of course, some of this is sort of work in progress. So I wish I could be a little more specific. But
Right.
we at UCSC Extension are doing every which way to make sure that our students are fully comfortable uh, and rules and regulations and any advice or questions and or confidential discussions. So that's how we are approaching it to make sure that very, very much a customized one-on-one approach, open door policy. They're welcome to talk to me anytime they want. Or sometimes families get involved. I mean, they want to know what's going on. Yeah, with everything okay. So that's how we are approaching it. We understand that it's a kind of unusual time, and so we just really need to up our game as far as supporting the students happens.
Absolutely. So, how do you see your students reacting to the current scenario?
You know, everybody's curious, and everybody's somewhat anxious, and that's why this whole thing. But by and large, I would say that it's you know, these days news travels fast, bad news travels even faster. But what but by and large, I would say that. Once they talk to us, once they understand that they make sure they're compliant with all the rules and regulations, and they feel fairly relaxed. I mean, I don't see people sort of really panicking or something.
And you just said that families can also get in touch with the college authorities to check on the scenario. I mean, how does that work in UCSC, Silicon Valley Extension?
So say the question again. Sorry, I just missed some part of that. Yeah.
I said,
Uh,
you just said that families also can get in touch with the college authorities, right?
yeah. Certainly,
How
we
does
have
that
families.
how does that work in your institute in UCSC Silicon Valley Extension?
Yeah. So we treat you know how it is. Indians very tightly knit families. And the family structure, I mean, that's one of the parts I really appreciate about India. Family is there for you no matter what. And, you know, until some point in life, parents are parents, and they worry about you. So we equally welcome, in fact, we encourage our students if they're feeling some degree of, and they're saying, well, I understand it, but my dad or my mom is still worried. So I say, have them call us, have them call us so we can talk to them and give them the same information. And so that's how we're approaching it. We're not treating family as some separate unit or something. We just think as an extension. We are extension by extension of the student itself.
Right. So, PK, the recent visa revocations, they involve a significant number of Indian students as well. However, we have also seen legal interventions and support systems, stepping in to protect students' rights. How can Indian students better prepare for and navigate such challenges? And what do institutions like UCSC, uh, you know, uh, do to play a pivotal role in supporting them? In general, not only your institute, but in general, what other institutes also in the US are doing to, support their students? What are you seeing? What's the ground reality? And also, since a lot of these visa revocations involve a significant number of Indian students.
Yeah, so I'm not up to date on the number of students involved because obviously there's still more uh, available in the Indian press.
Latest reports suggest that 50% of uh, the latest student visa revocations are involve Indian students. That's a
And is there, the number, just to sort of put some number around this thing, the total number that I've seen in the press again, is around 1,500 altogether. Uh, that's just on India altogether, total of so that's how the number that roughly, also to put a statistic around it, roughly there are 400,000 international students in the US at any point in time. Uh, so again, what we are doing is what I already described a little bit, but we're just making sure that the compliance is there, the document management is there, or if we prepare them for if something happens and they're faced with a unexpected situation, to what to do, get in touch with us immediately. So we are doing a little bit of what I could call contingency planning also, to just make sure that they're aware as to how to deal with these things. But talking to Indian students in particular, I find that they're much more savvy. I mean, they're the whole concept of jugaad, you know, is very much alive and well, and and I feel that they get it. I mean, they very quickly get it that they just need to make sure that they're really three things: they're compliant with the visa regulations, which means things like being a full-time student and all of those kind of things, and then secondly, make sure your documents are in order, just in case something is needed. And third is that in case something unforeseen happens, there's a game plan. So that's kind of how we are approaching it. And by and large, I would say that most uh, brand name universities are pretty much following the same approach, because they all realize that, global talent is very important, altogether. And we want to make sure that we provide that comfort as this whole situation is getting sorted out.
So it's a very interesting insight that you have shared, that Indian students are more savvy and they are more likely, and they are handling this current situation, this current uncertainty and insecurity more like a pro than others, right?
Yeah, and I think some of this is goes back to Indian educational system, and when people, the jugaad part, they figure things out quickly, but also more importantly, I find that they make some pretty intelligent choices. I mean, they study, and there's a whole infrastructure, as you know, there are educational consultants, universities promote these ideas, uh, Times of India and other media outlet, they promote dissemination of good information. So altogether, compared to other nationalities, they are very well prepared. So I don't worry too much about our Indian students, quite frankly.
Okay, good to hear that. Very reassuring. So, as we know that AI is infiltrating into and also penetrating almost every sector and aspect of our lives. So, with the increasing use of AI tools to monitor digital activity of international students in the US currently, how can they, the international students, I mean, be more mindful of their online presence? What guidelines and awareness programs or support systems do institutes offer to help them navigate this evolving digital landscape in the current scenario? I mean, as you must be aware that AI tools are being used to monitor the social media presence of students, right? In that
Yeah,
context.
yeah, it's very common across the world, actually, that that there's. I mean, that's what the downside of all of the digital tools and the massive amount of social media is. But so we are from very early on actually, even before all of this current situation that we're dealing with, we always advise our students on digital literacy. I mean, everybody's literate in the sense that they know how to use all of these tools, but the kind of digital hygiene, what are best practices? Like, for instance, we early on part of some of the orientation, we tell them, don't put anything in the social media that you're not proud to say publicly. Just because you think you're only talking to your friends or something, it's just be transparent about things. And so that's how we practice. And it's not only just a question about uh, visa compliance or any of these kind of things. It's a question about growing up, becoming a professional, uh, use of AI tools to monitor digital activity. So what I'm saying is that
Especially social media activities currently.
social media activity, and we encourage them to say, hey, look, anything you say is public. And, it's nothing to do with even the visa and international students, but generally, this is part of being a professional being in Silicon Valley, be respectful, be mindful, be courteous, don't just, and people's privacy, your own privacy as well. So at this stage, we're just telling them to just even up their game a little bit in this regard. So there's nothing new for us to be able to kind of like what we generally call digital hygiene, good practices of, and that's part of our what I call soft skill training we do with a lot of our students to really get ready for the professional marketplace.
PK, as someone who has led initiatives in diverse educational settings, how do you approach fostering inclusivity in academic programs, especially for international, you know, students?
You know, this is one area that being in Silicon Valley, we don't have to worry about. Because if you look at our typical classroom cohort, it's very diverse. Native born Americans, Caucasians, Hispanics, Blacks, I mean, Silicon Valley is the ultimate melting pot. I mean, if you ask me, I mean,
But
I
why
think that
is it so important? If you could explain, why is diversity so important?
why is diversity? The reason diversity is important that part of the kind of education we are trying to provide, we want to improve what we call the cultural quotient. They need to, if they're going to be global leaders, they need to be aware of different cultures, different point of views, being able to accept people where they are. So all of these things are part of just being diverse. And uh, and like I said, it's just because of what we are in Silicon Valley, it pretty much happens naturally anyway. Even our instructors, our professors, it's a very diverse set of groups. So I think people just, in fact, even if you take it one step further, uh, again, back to Indian students being very savvy, I, I find that probably 8 or 10 Indian students, pretty much want to go on an adventure out. They want to go and try out Mexican food. They want to try out Indonesian food, and they, because again, Silicon Valley. In fact, I would say that if you're looking for it, if you wanted to look for traditional American food, you might be hard pressed to find a place. And so I think it's just diversity is so built into the ecosystem here. There's even, like I said, it's that, and plus we encourage it obviously to really understand different cultures and that it used to be, I would say that when I was a student here, we had a certain amount of affinity towards finding other Indians and kind of hanging out together. Here I see, guys, gals, different cultures. They all kind of, you see these very mixed cohorts and having a good time.
Right. But in the current scenario with DEI activities being rolled back and DEI being targeted so harshly, do you find it challenging to continue with encouraging DEI activities in your institute?
You know, so
In fact, Harvard is having to rename its DEI office, diversity office.
yeah, but see, educational diversity, having diverse viewpoints and having diversity in the people you associate with, is not the same thing as DEI. DEI has to more deal with that by trying to be diverse, we are creating some biases. I mean, that's kind of the point of view that's in that regard being debated. Huh? So I think that that whole DEI issue is a whole other separate argument that's sort of, as you know, a lot of the debates around being anti-Semitic and so on and so forth. So it spills into whole other areas that, again, I wish I could be more intelligent about. But this diversity in the educational place is a very different thing.
Do you have a diversity office at UCSC, Silicon Valley
Yes, we
Extension?
do. Yes, we do. Yeah.
And you are not having to change anything like Harvard is having to.
You know, every university is different. Every state is different. But in California, we are continuing with the with the our commitment to diversity.
So you have expressed both excitement and caution regarding AI's potential. How should educational institutions balance both innovation and ethical considerations in integrating AI into learning environments?
Yeah. So AI is another thing that's happening so fast. So we are allowing for a lot of experimentation with AI. Like, let's just start with a AI as a personal assistant. It's perfectly acceptable, and from our standpoint, to use AI as a tool to do better at your assignments. I mean, that's perfectly, as long as you're disclosing it. Similarly, if an instructor wants to use AI for grading or for some other reasons, then they need to again get the students be aware of it, and also have realizing that AI is not perfect yet, to have some kind of a process through which if somebody said, "Hey, I know you use AI to grade my paper, and this doesn't seem right," then then you talk about it. So we are providing sort of a separate channels that AI doesn't become the ultimate arbiter, but it's just saying that it's a new tool that's evolved very quickly. And by the way, while I'm on the topic of AI, one of the other things that's taking place is that we're really encouraging students to think through their career choices also, because AI is going to be a very disruptive force, which is a whole separate conversation. But so yeah, so we are using AI. It's in the early stages. It's a personal productivity tool right now for most people, and as long as being handled in an intelligent manner with full disclosure, we should be using those tools.
And what about students? How what advice would you share for students who use AI as a supportive tool in their learning journey?
Yeah. So if somebody's using AI, only thing we are encouraging is that this is not to bypass the learning process, because it's so easy to fall back and say, well, the assignment's due tomorrow and I need to just write this 5-page paper and let's just crank it out. And of course, there are tools they're developing and we can figure out who's using, really not as a tool, but also as a crutch, so that's how,
Yeah,
but
it's very important to use it as a tool, not as a crutch. It's a
not a
very
crutch.
interesting opinion and advice that you have shared today.
And by the way, for our students, which are primarily, they're not your typical undergrad. The people who come to our programs are genuinely international, local. They're there to learn. You know, these kind of issues permeate more at the undergrad level. Uh, and so because we do more professional programs or grad programs, these issues are not pervasive and people understand. And pretty much uh, our faculty members, our instructors know when they start to talk, the classroom conversations. We have small classes. Uh, so there's just a lot of healthy conversation and they can figure it out pretty quickly. And again, we don't tend to take a hard line on any of this that, okay, you used AI and not intelligently, you're expelled. So we, give them a cautionary warning and people shape up pretty quickly.
Good to hear that. So, with the increasing emphasis on practical skills and industry alignment in education, how is UCSC Silicon Valley Extension adapting its programs to meet the evolving needs of the global workforce? Is there
We're,
any, what innovations in your program, in your curriculum structure, or in your programs are you bringing about to address the, evolving demands of the global workforce? Like,
Yeah, I guess I'm pausing here to kind of give you a little more macro answer, then I'll get into delve into micro. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So we are very fine-tuned to needs of the global workplace, and particularly the innovation sector of it, which is very important to students from India. And so we're constantly reviewing and talking to the employers and saying, is this the right program to offer, or what should we phase out? See, unlike universities, they have for good reasons, they have the degree programs that go on year after year. They add new things, obviously. In our case, we're on a fairly short cycle. So for starters, for every program that we offer, we have an industry advisory board. And this advisory board is constantly talking to the instructors. Some of them are instructors themselves. And so they're constantly asking the two questions: is this still relevant today? In its present form, do we need to modify it, or do we need to add some new courses, or do we need to just phase it out? Uh, and so I would say we have this churn that's constantly going on. And so newest kid on the block, like a lot of people, we are probably the first one in California to offer a certificate in AI. Because while AI on one hand is a tool, it's going to be also going to be occupation. And similarly, 5 years ago, we realized that data analytics is very big. We added data analytics. On the other hand, older programs such as web development, we realized that that's starting to fade away. And so how we're constantly fine tuning to say, are we making our students job ready or marketplace ready? Are they marketable? And so even if people start in one program, we might, oftentimes as they hear more about it, they might switch. They might say, you know what, I need to do something differently. In fact, I would say that having been in the tech sector, I can pretty much say that there's a lot of occupations, as we all reading, are going to become extinct in probably less than 10 years.
If you could give a few examples, PK, the professionals that are going to be extinct in a few decades or a years or a few years.
Yeah. Uh, so as a general rule, so let me just first tell you as to what benchmark we use to determine that. So
Okay.
any job function that's repeatable and predictable, machines are going to take over. It doesn't matter whether it's blue collar. If it's blue collar, the robots would take over with some AI in it. And if it's white collar, the AI type tools or intelligent agents would do all that. Uh, so, for instance, I don't see need for that many coders in 10 years. The whole process of marketing, digital or other marketing, because you can create so many artifacts and so much ad copy and everything, and edit it, of course. Everybody will be 4 or 5 times more productive. So there's job families that are actually going to. I mean, nothing disappears 100%, but
No, no, of
certainly.
course not. Of course not.
But on the other hand, other functions that ramp up. And by the way, I am not of the school of thought that says that there's going to be massive unemployment and there's going to be no jobs. See, I think what happens is that we assume that societies and culture will remain the same as they are today. If I can offer an example to amplify on this thing, that let's just go back 100 years ago when automobiles were first coming about. Even in India, we had Tangawala and all that kind of stuff. And now, obviously, as buses came about and all that, and transportation became transportation, yes, certain type of jobs disappeared over 3, 4, 5 decades, but the economy still grow. People consume differently. Like for instance, today in all countries, yeah, the people consume more and more services.
Consumption pattern evolves a lot.
But what happens, unfortunately, if you get stuck in the wrong job family and you're not willing to change, then you have a problem. But if you're willing to adapt and quickly change, like, Could a Tangawala become a cab driver? For sure. I mean, with some, and this is where governments can come in too to repurpose people. And part of the other thing we track is that we have a pretty good idea of which professions are growing very rapidly. So I'll give you several examples. So, for instance, one of the fastest growing occupations is a drone operator.
Drone operator. Okay.
Drone operator, yeah. The drones are multiplying. Drones are being used in agriculture. They're using surveying. They're using all, and somebody needs to operate these drones. I mean, and genetic counseling. And by the way, none of these jobs existed 10 years ago. In fact, this is California. I can give you a kind of fun example. There's a new profession which is also in fair amount of demand called the bud tender. So what bartender is to alcohol, a bud tender is to marijuana. And so a lot of people are having a parties, they have a bartender and a bud tender. And so these are just a whole range of, in fact, if you, in US, there's been a lot of surveys recently, and it's kind of funny that if you ask the undergrad students as to what would you like to be when you grow up, 57% of them say they like to be a social media influencer. But
This profession didn't exist, say, 15 years back.
but it's so big, so huge that people, and so a lot of people are making a living. And I
Yeah,
understand,
yeah.
I don't think there are
Like
jobs for
a lot of
57%.
people are making good living, and there have been instances where people have left their PhD degrees. You must be aware of to become, to join a social media platform.
Yeah. So so yes, it's just it's a what Schumpeter said, the creative destruction. And unfortunately we're in that creative destruction cycle where jobs are going to disappear, but economies will still grow, new jobs will come about. And part of what we are also offering people this kind of advice to say, a lot of people come to us actually. I'm not talking about international. I'm just talking about our domestic students. So they're saying, I work for company XYG, like HP or something. That's a, company of, very successful at one time. And I thought it's going to last me a lifetime, and I'm only 45, and I need to do something in my life. And I know what I knew back then, it's not going to work. So, so we are seeing a lot of that. And actually, in US, there are what they call workforce development programs where governments provide subsidy to students who are changing careers to go through this kind of education. Yeah,
So
so
there
it's
is, if you could shed a little bit of light on this, like government incentivizing students who are changing careers. What is the name of that program? Workforce
ge-
Development Program.
yeah, generally they are under the umbrella of workforce development program. If you want to look up something, the one if you do Nova, like Nova the Star, Silicon Valley, that's like our local workforce development agency. They send us 300-400 students each year to say, hey, you go through a qualifying process, but the basic criteria is that you want to change professions and you need to go through this kind of training. And then they don't have the will with all that to go through a degree program, which may or may not serve the purpose anyway. But we provide all kinds of transition paths. I mean, you may be in some kind of function, but you can switch into HR management. That's example of something that's still a fairly relevant profession. And so that's a role government, and I know Indian government is doing a lot of this workforce development also.
Okay. So we come to the concluding part of this very insightful discussion. You this is a question that I'm asking from the heart, not from my brain. PK, you studied in the US after completing your studies here at IIT Delhi. Maybe you shifted to the US, right? As an international student.
Yes.
So, how would you compare the challenges and opportunities that you faced back then, while as a student, to the ones encountered by students now?
Back to picking up on what I said earlier, the Indian students are so much savvier. So let me just paint a picture of the time I came.
Yeah, if you could include some of your personal anecdotes as well, your experiences, your how you adapted to the new culture, new environment, everything.
Right. So first of all, I didn't come to a big city. I came to a small town of Sacramento, which is the state capital of California, and they have a California State University. And I think, first of all, I was probably one of the 3 or 4 Indian students in the university. So I was a little bit more of a curiosity about who are these people, The telephone systems were old systems. It cost us $3 a minute to call India. You had to do something, is before you were born probably, there's something that you have to book a call and the operator will call both sides and say, we're connecting you. So just imagine that, I mean, $3 is a reasonable sum of money still, but in those days, I mean, it's like probably equal to $30 or something today. And so when you call your family, and I had 5 other siblings, so you pretty much say, hello, how are you? Aap kaise hain? Kya sab theek hai? Do it like 8 times and we're done. And so there was very few Indian restaurants, if any, even in major metropolitan areas. So, and we did not come hardly prepared, uh, as prepared as students come today. And I think some of this has to do with mass communications. Everybody watches television and everybody keeps up with all the news. Everybody has access to the same websites. So naturally, if you're reasonably inquisitive and curious, you catch on to everything. So that's a fundamental difference. And also, the Indian education system has by and large improved a lot. And people who are transitioning from Indian education system, they come to us, they get some professional education and move into the workplace. Then I don't see very much sort of a transition curve or some adaptation. They just pretty much feel at home. And the last thing I would say along those lines is that since I've been here a very long time, I've seen this. I share this when we get a lot of Indian delegations here, which we field a lot of them. Prime time we have our probably the most prolific one is Indian CEOs come here in October to network and do things with it. The IMA, the All India Management Association, brings them along, and we're partners with them. I describe to them that India, the brand image of India, has gone through 4 phases. So the first phase was primitive India, shaped by Hollywood. The Maharajas and snake charmers. That's the India that of the
America had
50s.
known back then, 50 years back, right?
Yeah. And then came along with the hippie movement, and Ravi Shankar and Beatles came up what I call the spiritual India phase. You know, myself included, we grew our hair long and we were supposed to be mystical and all of that kind of stuff. And then I think with Y2K, as India became on the business scene, and as more and more Indians started to get high profile roles, generally business, it still wasn't a household word here, but certainly what I call business India. People in the business world understand that India is a business partner. India is a source of a lot of very smart people. India is IT outsourcing companies. India is a destination for tourism, travel. So that was the business India. But now we are in a phase where India is cool. So I call it the cool India. And
Interesting.
and by the way, and it all happened, believe it or not. I mean, this is all my little inklings. It all happened. I mean, some of this were happening along the way anyway. But Big Bang Theory, given the fact that I don't know if you've seen Big Bang Theory, but there's Raj in there and all of that stuff, they really, really changed the thing. And there's a kind of a cultural shift that happened in one of the shows. That there's Emily, and Raj and Emily are dating each other. And Hollywood decided that it's okay to show an American, the number 1 show at the time, for Raj to kiss Emily on the screen. And from that point on, I feel like it was a turning point. Suddenly, India or being Indian became cool. And of course, there's already people in high profile positions and businesses, smart people, innovative people, jugaad, hardworking, all of those things kind of come along. Yeah. So at this point, having started the journey many, many, many years ago, when it's kind of like you were some kind of a either best a curiosity or on the low end of evolutionary scale or something of that nature, to find that, hey, if you're Indian, you must be smart, you must be savvy,
Oh,
you're
that's
probably well.
that's the impression Indians have over there now. If you're an Indian, you're smart and you're savvy. Oh, so good to hear that. So this was a very, I would say, this was a very real and very insightful conversation, and very lively as well. Too many. I mean, I not only got many information about the ground realities of America at the moment, of the international community in America at the moment, but also your personal anecdotes and everything. They have made this conversation really, really very, very enjoyable. Not only enlightening, but also enjoyable. Thanks a lot for joining in.